Who the hell is bluffing this line as in position? You just shouldn't bluff in this spot versus such a polar range, but we have found ourselves here as always. Yo guys, what's up? Ben Ababbit here and welcome back to another episode. So as you can see today, we are in a completely different setting again, and we are currently in the southwest of England in a place called Exeter. It is a very, very lovely part of the country, and it has been really, really nice to be stepping outside of like a very busy city like London or Melbourne. So fortunately for me, just a 2 or 3 minute walk down the quay is a place called the Generator Hub, which is a co-working space, and that's where I've been grinding for the past couple of weeks. It has been very interesting for me working in more of like an office environment. I'm sure many of you watching these videos can relate to that. Most of us just sit at home in our underwear grinding online poker, but here you do have loads of office spaces, loads of different people doing different jobs, and it has been really, really cool talking to different people from different walks of life. So if you do have a co-working space in your area and you are considering it as an option, I definitely do strongly recommend it. Give it a go and see how you find it. Now I know there was a few weeks off of content and I just want to explain what was going on. Some stuff was going on in my editor's life, which meant he wasn't able to do any of the editing, and nobody wants to see my editing in any of these videos, so we had to take a break. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be getting back to our bread and butter content, and that is going to be a monthly review of my results as well as a handful of hands. So I didn't actually grind for the first 2 weeks of this month. I was spending a lot of time with family and friends, just doing a lot of social activities, and generally just didn't have a lot of time or space for grinding. I have noticed that I actually have quite a lot of anxiety when I don't have my routine. When I say anxiety, I mean like anxiety while playing. Feeling like there's a lot more riding on kind of doing well and playing well. Whereas when you're playing something like 5 or 6 days a week, I generally feel a lot more comfortable being able just to kind of play sessions, think about every single hand and play the best I can, and then quit at my desired stop time. When I'm playing like one session here, one session there, the feeling of results being important really seems to seep in. Definitely something I want to keep an eye on, and I wonder whether or not any of you guys watching this video can relate to some of those mental game leaks. But that's definitely enough of that, so let's get on into the graph and the results for the month. So in terms of dollars on the month, we actually made 20,835, which was very, very plain sailing. We pretty much only had 2 losing days in the past 2 weeks, where we lost, I think, 3 and then 4 buy-ins back to back. But other than that, we pretty much won every single day, which is just, yeah, it just goes like that sometimes. In terms of buy-ins, we actually made over 35 buy-ins, and again, the graph was just very, very smooth sailing for that whole period, apart from that little blip in the middle. Now let's take a little look at the bonuses and rate back and that kind of thing from the month. There were quite a few mystery envelope hits, and these are just cash game splashes that just kind of get paid out here and there. We're probably just getting absolutely shafted in rake, and it feels like we're making some money back, but it was something nonetheless. I actually made leaderboard on the 2-5 anti-table a few times as well, which is pretty mind-blowing from my volume. And then we also made some money rate back as well. Overall, our rate back did amount to $4,924 for a grand total on the month of $25,777. It's quite nice to have back-to-back winning months after, I think, 3 months or 4 months of either break even or losing. So today we have got some spicy hands for you guys. The first of which I have a set versus another reg in a single race pot, but it goes pretty damn pear-shaped pretty quickly. Next up, we have a set versus a recreational player, but the board runs out 4 straight. The next hand is versus one of the most well-known red line Russian regs. And the last, I definitely try and dust it off in a 3-bet pot versus a regs river overbet. So in the first hand today, we get an open for 2.5x from a tighter reg in MP. We're on the button with pocket 3s, and I think ordinarily versus a lot of players, we just want to fold here. There are a couple of other factors that go into this. The MP player is a weaker / tighter reg, and the big blind is also a very, very tight and weak reg as well. Therefore, I am just going to pure call this combo on the button. There are going to be millions of other configurations where I'm always going to fold this. Whether or not that means there's an aggressive reg in the big blind or it's a competent good reg in MP, those would be the reasons for me calling or folding. We see 9-5-3 and a very pleasing bottom set. Villain checks to us, which we're going to see always, I assume. And I think we want to be betting this board fairly aggressively. I don't feel too strongly about using 1/3 or 1/2. I decided to go 1/3 because I am just stabbing versus this player particularly, or this player type, should I say, a lot. So I do feel that I just want to be not mixing my sizes and just be using the small size very frequently. Curiously, we get a monster check raise on the flop to 92. I believe this is about pot. So when they do make it pot here, I don't think that this is going to be like bluffs, hands like queen jack with a queen of diamonds, for example. I think this is going to be much more weighted towards sets, over pairs, and then maybe some combo draws as well. There may be like the occasional like ace 3 or something like that. In game, I just thought that there were definitely going to be 3-bets on this texture, building around hands like pocket 5s, pocket 3s, pocket 9s, and then some like 5x with backdoor flush draw, ace 3 with backdoor flush draw, etc. I've since looked though, and there aren't really any 3-bets here, but if you were to like run this in later positions, there would be some more raises. Anyway, there are no raises, but shoot me, I made a mistake in game. We are a bit deeper as well, and I decided to make it 70% pot, which is 267. My main concern with this in hindsight now is that because of this player being on the tighter side, I don't really think I just get to turbo stack them when they have overpairs. I do think that they are going to be able to get away, and my line is extraordinarily strong when I 3-bet the flop. So exploitatively, I actually really dislike my flop 3-bet in hindsight. I think keeping the range as wide as possible is probably just the way to go here. Denial is like not that important, especially if they're not really going to be stacking off those overpairs. We see a 4 of hearts on the turn. It's quite an interesting card. I think I turned some 2 pairs with hands like 5-4 suited, which there are 2 combos if I've decided to flick in the old 5-4 spade sometimes on the flop, which I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. But it is certainly going to improve my equity. If I have like a combo like 6-5 or ace 3 or something like that, I will have turned some more equity in straight draws. I think with my hand, I just have a very mandatory bet. The last thing to mention is that because I've 3-bet the flop, I'm naturally in a fast play node, and therefore I am just going to be betting much more frequently for that reason. This is also a spot where actually I have a nut advantage and an equity advantage, so an EV and an equity advantage. I think given that I have sets on the flop, and because I'm playing 3-bets, I am going to have those a lot, and out of position is going to have all of those overpairs. I just actually think that we just have a monumental advantage here. In terms of sizing, I don't feel strongly between very small, well like 20% pot and 33% pot. You can kind of do what you want in this situation. I decided to go about 20% pot on this occasion. I am actually now expecting villain to fold a bunch of their overpairs on the turn. We see a 9 of hearts on the river, which is a beautiful river, giving us a full house, obviously the worst full house possible, but still a full house nonetheless. We have a very mandatory jam in position. I'm not really sure what I'm expecting to get called by here. My main thinking in game was probably like 10-9 of diamonds, ace-9 of diamonds, something like that. And I guess there is a small possibility that there could be a 7-6 in there, although I do think we expect that to pure shove on the turn. We do get absolutely snap called by quads, which is definitely going to be a hand that we're going to get stacked by always. Without being results oriented, I think that I have overplayed my hand absolutely. But definitely let me know what you guys think about this one. Next up, we have got pocket 6s in the small blind, and we get an open from a new recreational on the button. So my dark green tag is recreationals on probation. So I don't actually know who they are, but I assume, or I'm thinking that they're probably going to be some kind of recreational. You can also see that they are running a 60 VPIP already. I can't remember how many hands that was off. They open to 2x, and I mandatory 3-bet pocket 6s in the small blind. We flop a very tasty bottom set on 10-7-6 with a flush draw, and I decide I'm just going to c-bet my hand always. I think if I had a hand like pocket 10s, I probably still would c-bet, but I'd be less likely to bet it. I think just unblocking all of that kind of like top pair region is just so crucial versus an unknown recreational player. We have good hand, we're playing a recreational, let's just put money in the pot. We see a pretty unpleasing 8 of clubs on the turn, bringing a second flush draw. I think there are some merits to checking here and then just calling, or I do think blocking and letting recreational do something may also be a good option. If we go small, they are going to continue with a lot of their 10x. They may even continue with hands like a7, or they may raise us to 4x, which is $477. I am very unhappy with the situation already. I don't have a great deal of reads on this player, other than they have played 60% of pots and they seemed relatively active, but not like ultimate spew, I would say. So I'm not overly sure. I'm definitely just gonna fold here if I've decided to bet a hand like, I don't know, ace-10, not that I probably would, but if I had like a hand slightly worse than this, or even maybe a hand like 2-pair, I may consider folding. I think with this exact combo, when we have a set and we've still got equity, and there's always a chance of spew factor versus new recreational players versus small sizes, I just decide to close my eyes and jam it in. I'm expecting to run into a 9 here a decent amount of the time, but that's okay. I start losing my mind here a little bit. I think I can't slide up the slider until I realize it's a min raise all in, so I do shove the rest in. We get very, very quickly called. I am now expecting to lose a decent amount of the time. On this occasion, I find myself on the floor because I've just fallen out of my chair, and we are in pretty good shape given the circumstances with 95% versus ace-8 offsuit. Just trying to fade the chop, and on this occasion, we do. So here we are playing the most prolific redlining reg in Russia. So I know many people will know who this is when I say that. This player has been very open recently, talking on forums, Russian forums, about some hardships that they have been confronted with in their life, and they are regrinding their role at 1K and are effectively, in their words, busto. Now, I just want to also say a lot of people in my Discord who play like lower 500NL, 1KNL have been talking a lot of shit about this player. And I think I want to say that this player needs a lot more respect put on their name. Not only has this player battled with the actual best in the world for a long time, he's also been extremely successful in what we would definitely call a very unconventional style. So I just want to say that people talking shit about this player, I think you need to take a little look at your own game before you start talking smack about players who is quite literally, arguably, one of the best players in the world. Maybe not right now, certainly has been in the past. So with that out of the way, we have pocket aces on the button. No better way to play an aggressive player than to have pocket aces. So we mandatory 3-bet the button to 8 big blinds, and we get cold called out the small blind from a nitty recreational. Yellow tag is nitty rec. We do get called from the cutoff, and we see a pretty nice 8-6 deuce. Small blind will flop some sets here, as well as the cutoff. Now, this player, very aggressive player, is very well known for getting out the donk bet, but on this occasion, they do choose not to donk the flop. So we go ahead and bet half pot. I think this is just very standard stuff. Recreational and small blind is just not going to be able to get away from any form of overpair, and this is just going to be a board that's going to favor us as well. Cutoff does tank and end up calling. We see a very interesting turn, top set bringing a flush on board. It's hard to say now whether or not the in position or out of position player has more flushes. I would say it's pretty symmetrical. The reason I say that is that I am going to be mixed 3-betting versus the cutoff with a lot of those kind of like low suited connectors. However, when the recreational does cold call the small blind, I think out of position is probably just going to get to call a lot more of those suited hands that may well have mixed all the time. So I'm not sure if they have more flushes, but I think it's probably close. There is definitely an asymmetry though in sets, because out of position is going to be check raising those pretty much always, as well as me having an advantage with pocket aces. Cutoff doesn't waste too much time before leading out, which is definitely a trademark move for half pot. Now, this half pot sizing would suggest that they feel that they have a significant advantage on this turn. Whether or not that is true or not, I don't know. But all I can speak to is I know that this player is definitely somewhat of an exploit player as well. So they may also have some reads or reasons for doing that as well. In terms of my combo, obviously we're continuing. It's whether or not we want to shove or call. I think shoving would be a pretty monumental mistake. The reason for that is that this player type, as I said, is a red line player and also very creative. So they can absolutely have some absolute turbo dead hands that are drawing probably to maybe 4 outs, but I maybe don't get stacked on a diamond. A hand like 10-9 of hearts or something like that, or even a hand like 7-6 of hearts, to be honest with you. We do eventually call, and we see the 9 of clubs on the river. Out of position now shoves. I am going to be snap calling just for the fact that I now know that this player can have a hand like 7-6 of hearts, or like a combo, maybe even like combo like 9-8 of hearts that's now hit 2 pair. Absolutely think that this player is capable of that. Before I do reveal the results, I want you to let me know in the comments what you think out of position player has here. Either way, I do end up snap calling, and on this occasion, we do lose, not overly surprisingly, to Jack 10 of diamonds, which is a very nice hand to them. So on to today's last hand, we have pocket 7s in MP, and we are playing versus a new reg. Now, we don't have many reads on this reg. Ordinarily, pocket 7s is going to be a low frequency 3-bet versus a new reg who's kind of coming to the 1K GG pool, or to to any game, I generally will err on the side of slightly more aggression until I have reasons to do otherwise. So I decide to 3-bet my hand all the time versus this player. They do defend and we see 8-8-6 rainbow, and when they check on over to us, I decide just to go, my sizing is always going to be half pot here. I decide to bet my hand always on the flop. Villain does call and we see the ace of hearts on the turn. When villain checks to us, I think that now we have not got a filtered range. I think that now we're going to be playing a decent amount of check back. I don't think there are going to be any donk bets from out of position, simply because in position is just going to be betting so much ace king, ace queen, ace jack and ace 10 on the flop, and hands like ace 5 that out of position now doesn't have. That said, I definitely don't think this is going to be one of those spots where in position just gets to bet frivolously. We are going to have to check back a number of combos. With my particular combo, I'm just never going to do anything other than pure check. All not very contentious so far, I would say, but we do see the 6 of clubs, and this is where it gets a little bit out of line. Villain interestingly gets out the full pot for $300 on the river. So let's get in our justifications, excuses, whatever you want to call them, as early as possible. So first things first, if I have a hand like pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks, I'm just going to fold my hand always. I have no good reasons to call those combos, but I don't have one of those hands. I have pocket sevens. So when villain uses this very big sizing on the river, I'm not sure what sizing scheme they're approaching this spot with. Maybe they're going to be using a small sizing and then this is going to be their big sizing. Maybe they're going to have some all-ins. You just don't know with this kind of player type. First things first is that the sizing is relatively scary. I think therefore we probably just want to be folding our combo, particularly because this is a player that we don't know anything about. So I think we can all agree that folding is probably just going to be the correct strategy. However, we have pocket sevens here and we double block and single block a lot of the value combos that our position can have. We don't block any straight draws, so we don't block any bluffs, which is obviously very, very good when we're trying to shove a combo that we want our opponents to fold. The other thing though is that we only block 1 8 and 2 6s. Blocking the 8 is very, very relevant here, but I think this is definitely a spot that we want to double block the 8 and not single block the 8. The other thing to say is that I just don't think out of position here is ever going to be defending 9-8 offsuit under the gun, whereas I do think they may defend some 8-7 and then some 7-6 as well. My only concern here is that actually we may be blocking the folding range too heavily. We do block the 2 combos of 7-6 suited, which are very, very likely hands that are going to use this sizing if they're using a big sizing with boats. And those are probably also going to be some of the first hands that are going to fold. Me as in position is never going to be shoving a 6 here. So in game, I did think double blocking the 6 and single blocking the 8 was a really, really good reason to shove. But in hindsight, I just think I want to double block the 8 and maybe only block the 6 one time so that my fold equity is at its max. However, I wasn't able to figure all that out in game. All I saw in game was, oh, double block 6, single block 8, they're polarized, we need to have decent blockers, we unblock the folding range, let's just flick it in and go for it. So I don't waste too much time, I decide pretty much immediately that shoving is a potential option. I do spend the rest of my time bank thinking about my blockers, fortunately, as we probably should as professional poker players, and I do ram it in their eye. We don't get snap called, which is very, very, very good news. The last thing to mention is that who the hell is bluffing this line as in position? You just shouldn't bluff in this spot versus such a polar range, but we have found ourselves to, as always. Luckily this time we do get the fold. Super interested what people think of this play. Was it just absolute whale play? Was it stumbled upon genius? Or was it just like, meh, probably okay, but probably shouldn't do it, probably shouldn't do it, probably shouldn't do it, probably shouldn't do it, probably shouldn't do it. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you did enjoy the content today, please do go ahead and drop me a sub. Really looking to get these videos out to as many people as possible. And remember, we do have a Discord as well. The link will be in the description. But until next time, take care, and I'll see you at the tables.